Hi, my name is Prince Baguette.
Hi everyone, my name is Wo Chung.
Hi, my name is Will Ackery.
Hi, I'm Devyani Kothari.
Hi, my name is Ken Kelly.
Hello everyone, my name is Cynthia Alvarado Crawford, and today my group and I will be discussing Ford Motor Company and their supply chain strategy. So let's go ahead and get started. Hello everyone, for our presentation we will be discussing Ford Motor's general issues, who Ford main stakeholders are, Ford's theories and concepts, their symptoms and their problems, their alternatives and evaluation criteria, best solutions and implementation plan, their evaluation and review of the project, and their current status update. Here are some facts about Ford Motors. The company was founded in 1903 by Henry Ford and has since then produced in excess of 260 million vehicles. Ford was the second largest industrial corporation in the world with revenues of more than $144 billion and about 370,000 employees, with operations that spanned over 200 countries. In the 70s, Ford was one of the top three automakers in the United States. The other two were GM and Chrysler. These three companies had seen their home markets infiltrated by the expansion of foreign-based automakers like Toyota and Honda. The automotive industry was facing increased overcapacity by an estimated 20 million vehicles, making the battle for advantage in the industry much more difficult due to it becoming more global. Ford was looking for ways to take advantage of their global presence, and they did it by moving towards industry consolidation. For example, like their fellow competitors, Ford would announce that it would acquire Sweden's Volvo, and there were also rumors of the possible acquisition of other companies as well. In 1995, Ford started their Ford 2000 plan, which included merging its North American, European, and their international automotive operations into a single global organization. Ford 2000 called for a dramatic reduction to be obtained through re-engineering and globalizing corporate organizations and processes. Product development was consolidated into 5 vehicle centers. Ford's goal was to eliminate organizational and process redundancies and realize huge economies of scale in manufacturing and purchasing. Major re-engineering projects were started around important processes like order and delivery. The purpose of OTD project was to reduce it from 45 days to 15 days, which highlighted the process from the time a customer ordered to the delivery of the finished product, which would be a significant reduction on the present performance. The Ford production system, it was integrated in order to help Ford manufacturing operations become leaner and more responsive and more efficient. IT emerged as a critical enabler in every re-engineering project. For example, the supply chain area agreed that IT could be deployed to help enhance material flows and reducing inventories by substituting information for actual inventory. In 1997, Ford implemented the business-to-business capability, which allowed them to use the intranet capability and connect to the extranet in a secure manner, which had the potential to connect Ford to its suppliers. Some of the challenges that Ford faced were Ford's supply chain strategy was no longer effective and it needed to be updated because of their growth and expansion that they had experienced, which launched them to work with thousands of suppliers. The company wanted to build better relationships with suppliers and customers using new informational technology. And the last key issue is that the foreign competitors were invading the domestic market, bringing in some intense competition for Ford. In this slide, we will be looking at the stakeholders and identifying who they are. First, we will look at who the external stakeholders are. As you can see, where the yellow colors are, those will be your external stakeholders. The stakeholders are customers, competitors, dealerships, and lower level suppliers. As you look to the right, you will see the same type of diagram but in a different color, and these are the internal stakeholders. The internal stakeholders are board members, shareholders, executive managers, employees, and the Tier 1 suppliers. Both of these categories make up Ford's stakeholders.
We will utilize the IT impact map to identify Ford's strategies and capabilities within their organization in order to develop a sound supply chain strategy. The IT impact map will help illustrate and define the alignment of Ford's focus as they strive to improve upon their existing infrastructure to gain additional value, reduce cost, and improve their overall relationship and efficiencies with its suppliers. With incremental improvement through Ford's existing supplier base, it focuses heavily on a Tier 1 approach, that is where suppliers would manage relationships with a larger base of suppliers of components or subsystems. However, through this process, cost reduction and improved quality was a bit more difficult to achieve. Ford's IT impact on strategy and their capabilities, which has played a major role in how Ford has identified their core products and the market position they have gained. Ford has differentiated themselves as an automaker of choice and has gained a sustainable advantage through their Ford production systems as well as their order-to-delivery process. This was Ford's attempt at establishing a new business process design and reengineering. Through the Ford production system, Ford has focused their key attributes of a production process, in which it aspires to levels of production that moves towards a pull system rather than a push system. This type of system has allowed Ford to be more synchronized, allowing continuous flow and stability throughout the entire production process. Continuous flow is the advantage that this pull system allows when it only generates a fixed sequence and level amount of flow. With this process, Ford could communicate with its suppliers on exactly the amount of product needed in advance and thereby reducing its overall inventory. In terms of the order-to-delivery process, Ford was able to tremendously lower their lead time to roughly 15 days from that of the original 45 to 65 days it normally took to finish a product. This re-engineering approach dramatically improved Ford's process with regards to their supply chain, marketing, material planning, vehicle production, as well as transportation. Ford focused on the improvement of these areas for 4 different criteria. First, it required ongoing customers' forecast demands from its dealerships. Second, there was a 15-day vehicle requirement in order bank to increase manufacturing stability. Third, it incorporated regional mixing centers to optimize schedules and deliveries. And fourth, an order amendment process for minor areas was then established. This process helped Ford to provide a more improved quality product to its customers while reducing costs and generating more profits for the company. In terms of the emerging opportunity for Ford, it is to implement and incorporate a new concept that will help drive towards their goal of sustainability, cost reduction, and improved quality approach. Through virtual integration, Ford is able to achieve their goal of improving and increasing their business. Virtual integration is defined by Business Dictionary as the use of the internet to replace physical components of a company with information. A business engaged in virtual integration owns only their brand and their clients. This eliminates the need to physically produce, ship, and handle any products as they are now outsourced. Through virtual integration, Ford is able to have suppliers who maintain the following. First, nearby shipment points and ensure delivery times of 15 minutes to an hour. Second, Ford can leverage external logistics suppliers to manage their inbound supply chain. Third, customers can frequently steer to PCs with high availability to balance supply and demand. And lastly, focus on strategic partnerships which resulted in a supplier base from 200 down to just 47. With the implementation of a virtual integrated system of processing and ordering of vehicles, Ford can ensure that their process and operations are efficient, which ultimately leads to their business transformation of their overall goal. That goal is to help ensure that their products and services remains competitive while improving overall quality and purchase experience for their customers while increasing and improving profitability for the company overall.
Going to present symptoms and problems for case 2. Ford Motor Company supply chain management. Symptom number 1. US market taken over by foreign automakers. Ford experienced the shrinkage in demand for Ford's vehicle in its home market due to the expansion of foreign automakers like Honda and Toyota by improving quality and providing competitive pricing. As a decision, Ford 2000 restructuring plan included merger of its North American, European, and international automotive operations into one single global organization. By making processes and products globally common, Ford intended to eliminate organizational and process redundancies and realize huge economies of scale in manufacturing and purchasing. Ford's this new approach required to introduce information technology to overcome constraints usually imposed by geography on information flow. Number 2, lengthy OTD, order to delivery time. Ford existing OTD process was taking about 60 to 65 days for Ford customer to receive the finished product that they would order due to the weak supply chain and indirect traditional model of Ford processing the OTD in which customer would place their order with the local dealers and then local dealers will forward the order to the Ford manufacturing and the Ford will place their orders with suppliers and then supplier will provide the parts to the Ford to build the vehicle and then Ford would deliver the built vehicle to the dealer and then dealer will fulfill the order that was placed by the customer, which was taking about 60 to 65 days. As a result, Ford decided to evaluate direct model of doing business as Dell, in which customer would place their order directly with Ford without the involvement of the dealer. Ford will build the car based on the customer specification and deliver the car to customer directly within 15 days. Ford's this new approach to implement an improved OTD process relied on several elements such as ongoing forecasting of customer demands based on inputs from the dealers, minimum 15 days of vehicles in each assembly plant's order bank to increase manufacturing stability, regional mixing centers that optimize schedules and deliveries of finished products, and robust order amendment process to allow vehicle to be amended for minor color and trim variations without having to submit the new order. Third symptom is complex supply chain. Ford's traditional supply chain was very complex, involving many different layers of suppliers. Suppliers were picked mainly based on the cost they offered with little regard to the overall supply chain costs. As a result, Ford began to actively try to decrease the number of suppliers and shifted the focus on building long-term relations for Tier 1 suppliers who were capable to provide entire vehicle subsystems. These Tier 1 suppliers would manage the relationships with Tier 2 and the below suppliers. Fourth symptom is failure to achieve cost savings in IT. Ford was unsuccessful in achieving overall cost savings in its IT. Although Tier 1 suppliers had fairly well developed IT capabilities, they were unable to invest in new technologies at the same cost as Ford. Nevertheless, IT understanding in lower tier of supply chain was very low. As a result, Ford 2000 developed inline vehicle sequencing, that used vehicles in process, storage devices, and computer software to ensure that vehicles were assembled in order sequence. By inline vehicle sequencing, Ford could tell suppliers exactly when and where certain components would be needed days in advance, and buffer stocks could be dramatically reduced. That allowed Ford to receive parts quicker from suppliers.
Solutions and implementation. So looking at solutions. In order for Ford to remain competitive and position itself for future success, the company has to instill a solution-based process to achieve this goal. While the company has seen much success in the past, operating with new processes is imperative for their future longevity. One of the solutions that we need to talk about is the adopt the pull versus push process. This strategy focuses on a mainstream customer versus the one for all strategy. This will help Ford align its resources, focus on a centralized target market, and ultimately drive efficiencies, maximize performance, and drive down cost. Refining the existing supply chain process is also imperative. Behind any organization the size of Ford, a successful supply chain is needed. When we look at such companies as Walmart, a big piece of their success is the fact they have a world-class supply chain supporting their stores. Although they're in a different industry, Ford needs to look at this strategy and tailor it to their business. With that being said, we're going to look at Dell's current supply chain strategy, which has been very successful for the company. We recommend that Ford take a close look at Dell's current supply chain and implement part of its program into their own business model. So when you look at Dell's processes, suppliers own inventory until it is used in production. This is a very efficient way to run your business, as it allows supplies to be just in time for the production process. This minimizes cost, drives efficiency, and ultimately helps the return on investment. Another thing that serves Dell very well is their demand forecasting, which is critical. This ensures that the forecast is a driving factor on when production commences and when it ceases. Another area that we think will be a good target area for solutions is the streamlining of their processes. By doing this, they mitigate the risk of excess inventory, they take out waste out of the operation, and help drive efficiency. So by aligning processes to be globally common, this will allow all facets of the company to be aligned at the same time, regardless of geographic location. Next, we're going to talk about implementation. Ford needed ways to find improvement in their quality and help to reduce the cycle times. By implementing technology to establish a global approach, this will also help them streamline processes, eliminate waste in the operation, and maximize efficiency. Major companies now are heavily reliant on implementing technology to minimize the processing times. With IT's involvement in enhancing the material flow, along with reducing inventories, this will help Ford become more flexible and more fluid in their day-to-day operations. Another part of the implementation piece that we want to talk about is the restructuring of the current supplier-buyer relationship. Currently, Ford utilizes multiple suppliers for different parts of their business. This does not allow any flexibility within an organization. The company is solely reliant upon its suppliers, and this needs to change. We feel with them being more strategic in how they utilize the suppliers, by minimizing the amount of suppliers, not only will this drive competition, which will ultimately drive down cost, but this will allow the company to be more proactive and more flexible in meeting the demands of the consumer. Last but not least, we're going to talk about the order to delivery strategy. This will help minimize the lead time between when product is ordered and when it's delivered. By having this focus, this will also eliminate inventory costs and once again help drive shareholder value and keep Ford remaining as one of the top competitors in the industry.
Hi, I'm going to talk about the alternatives and evaluation criteria. One thing we know is that from Ford's existing supply base is something that they have become very accustomed to. They very much had a product of history. So one thing that we had to take into account with the alternatives and the evaluation criteria is that what was their global approach? Where were they trying to go? And we knew that technology there was employed to overcome constraints which were imposed by the geography. So teams on different continents needed to be able to work together as if they were in the same building. That was one of their huge goals. And in every re-engineering project, information technology was critical. So they needed to deploy and find new methods of being able to be more efficient on the operation side, as well as being able to technologically communicate with all these other arenas quicker, faster, and more efficient. So as we go through the alternatives and evaluation criteria, the first alternative that we have was keep Ford's existing supply base. Well, we know that with the existing supply base, it began in the early 1990s. It shifted toward longer-term relationships, and Ford made its expertise available in just-in-time, total quality management, and statistical process control. As the supply company had grown over the years, so had the supply base. So in the late 1980s, there were several thousand suppliers of production materials in a complex network of business relationships. Suppliers were picked primarily on the basis of cost, and little regard was given to the overall supply chain costs or the complexity of dealing with such a large network of suppliers. And we know whenever you're dealing with a large network of suppliers, there's other costs associated such as freight, shipping, etc. when it comes to that. So one of the alternatives to keep Ford's existing supply base, which the pros, there were no major changes and additional costs involved. And of course, with them being established in this base for a long time, this is something they were accustomed to. This is something they knew very well. So very easy to implement. Don't have to shift too much. They were starting to develop longer term relationships. So on the positive side, con-wise, Ford's IT will eventually become obsolescence. This type of business efficiency or way of going about business just doesn't work anymore, and it's not going to survive. So also, as I already mentioned, the complexity of dealing with the large network of suppliers, and lastly, limited cost savings. They noticed that even though they were trying to dwindle down their relationships with their suppliers, that they weren't always getting the best costs, or because they still had quite a bit of suppliers, they still had a lot of other freight charges and other charges that they weren't really identifying. Second alternative, they could diversify their online and offline operations and develop procedures to enable customization and ordering by customers over the internet. Now, this is huge because to be able to offer a customer the customization, being able to order in time and get what they want is huge. And they pretty much did this through their order to delivery process that they wanted to work on. They wanted to reduce their time of actual delivery from 45 to 65 days to only 15 days. And they wanted to do this through different things, through a main implementation process, which was being able to forecast customer demand, increase manufacturing stability, set up regional mixing centers that could optimize schedules and deliveries, and a robust order amendment process. Because they wanted to be able to allow vehicles to be amended for minor color and trim variations without the need to submit new orders. So for the customer to now have that customization would be huge. So the pros of that, easier customization to the clients. So it was easy for customers to be able to make any adjustments, anything to the car, and get it in time. And quicker customer response with the shorter lead time. From them going from 45 to 60 days to now moving that down to 15 days would be huge in actually being able to deliver that value to the customer. And the only con that I saw that was really involved was it was costly and it requires internal and external changes. So a lot would have had to change in between the operations in order to make this very effective. And lastly but not least, the last alternative I have is create a vertically integrated supply chain based on Dell. So based on Dell was at least pros wise, they had a customization of client requests. It was a start of vertical integration. it will create less obsolete inventory on hand and increase manufacturing stability. Now, going back to that less obsolete inventory on hand, the reason why that's so important is because a lot of these different locations were stocking parts, stocking things that became obsolete. And obsolete inventory is no good obsolete. So it will either become obsolete or non-listed parts. And to have non-listed part on your shelves obviously costs the company money. And through this supply chain, which Dell has, you get it when you order it. So you hope that you speed up the just-in-time delivery kind of part of it, and you should get it quicker. And that was the main part of being able to go into the Dell-based system. Now, the negatives here is that them basing their company on a company like Dell, it's kind of broad. It's a broad-based comparison because Dell is more of an organizational type company, and that's a little different than from what Ford is in regards to the supply chain. Ford's also traditional processes and methods would have to be changed, and change isn't always a bad thing, but a lot of times it costs a lot of money and a lot of research and development. But as a whole, this would be awesome for Ford.
I will be discussing the evaluation and review of our case study, as well as the current status update of Ford Motor Company. Virtually integrating the supply chain may sound like a fairly simple task, but it actually requires a high level of commitment from Ford Motor Company and its suppliers, very tight coordination and communication between companies in the supply chain, and a very robust IT system. The system must be capable of allowing efficient and secure communication within the Ford company. This would be their intranet. It was noted in our text that Ford was aiming for a system that allowed for employee interaction on a level where people on different continents could communicate as if they were in the same building. And it also requires a second layer of efficient and secure communication between companies. This would be their extranet, without granting too great a level of access to other companies such that Ford's security as a whole is at risk. This also requires that Ford offer an unusually high level of support to its suppliers. Suppliers must be current, or at least compatible with Ford in terms of IT technology, reliability, and network security. Ford has greater capabilities than many of its suppliers. This outgrowth requires Ford to regularly invest in its suppliers and keep a close watch on their capabilities. Successful implementation of Ford's efforts to reduce the vastness of its supply chain and focus only on top-tier suppliers should help simplify the problem. Transitioning from a traditional supply chain system to a tiered system is also a complicated matter that requires great attention, communication, and coordination within Ford and its suppliers. Key suppliers need to be ranked and selected, and then suppliers need to be informed of their involvement in the Ford supply chain. Reduced cycle times will be difficult to pull off, especially to this magnitude. It requires careful coordination, leaner manufacturing processes, quick decision-making, and demand predictability. This goes hand in hand with the switch from a push-to-pull system. In Ford's new system, they market to customers, and public demand drives production. In the old system, they would manufacture and market to dealers, which drove up inventory and waste. The greatest benefits from this new strategy are major cost reductions, which will of course drive profits and company value upward, a better organized supply chain for greater efficiency, closer control over operations and relationships with first-tier suppliers, and a leaner overall supply chain. Significantly faster order-to-delivery times will be realized, which will improve customer satisfaction, drive down cost, and increase capacity. The CEO of Ford recently stated publicly that if there is one recent event that symbolizes our renewed financial strength, it is this: the return of the iconic Ford Blue Oval. This statement was found on the Ford corporate website in a discussion of Ford's overall performance. Ford wagered their historic logo as collateral to show their commitment to future growth, and recently they proved that they can follow through with their commitments after climbing back up from a several-year struggle. Ford's commitment to their supply chain is still a core component of their strategy, along with customer service, quality vehicles, and lean operations, and it is paying off. From 1994 to present, the company has performed poorly compared to the S&P 500 and other indices. When we focus on more recent events, however, we see that they are in a period of exceptional growth. Their other partners in the American auto industry are also reaping the benefits, as the companies have almost identical performance trends. This becomes obvious when we compare the companies with foreign auto manufacturers like Toyota and Honda. The graph shown here only indicates Ford, GM, Toyota, and the S&P 500 performance for cleanliness and readability. Some of Ford's goals that were reported as on track in 2012 were as follows. to execute the One Ford transformational plan to create a leaner, more efficient global enterprise, to achieve profitability in 2012, to align capacity to demand, to reverse the trend of losing money on small car production in the United States, and to set new goals under the Blueprint for Mobility in early 2012. These are in line with the transformation of their supply chain and the shift from a push-to-pull demand system. Shortly after, they created their Blueprint for Sustainability in 2013, which focuses in on financial health, climate change and the environment, water conservation, vehicle safety and driver assist technology research, supply chain development, people, both the public and employees, and Ford facilities around the world. It is clear that Ford is on the right track, and if they continue their current path, we should expect to see continued growth over the next several years. And that concludes our presentation on Ford Motor Company. We hope you enjoyed it.